Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of my Road to FIDE Master series. I've played a new training game against my partner, Andrei Ashukov. It was a fascinating game with lots of tactics. I played a new opening that I will show you now, and it was really exciting and really instructive for me, so I hope you will like it as well. So as you may know, on my road to the FIDE Master title, I regularly play training games against my friend Andrew, who's rated around 2100 over the board and around 2300 on chess.com. And in this game, he was playing with the white pieces, and he surprised me by making the first move c4. And I decided to surprise him in turn. I thought he'd prepare for my usual setups with c6 and maybe transpose into the semi-Slav defense, which I have been playing for a long time, but got a little bit tired of. And also I thought he might have prepared something spicy. So I surprised him by going knight to f6. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to play the good old King's Indian defense. And actually, I've never played it over the board. This is a new opening for me, although it's obviously not, not a new opening in terms of chess theory. It's been played for many years. It's actually been popularized in the middle of the 20th century by some Soviet grandmasters like David Bronstein, for example. Okay, so the idea of this opening is I give up some space in the center, white takes the center, but I play against white center, and usually I play against the king. So if the king goes to this side, as he usually does, then black can start a devastating attack. And this is like going for broke. And I've always thought that I should try the King's Indian because this suits my style, my attacking style. So let's see how it worked out this time. So I decided to go for the knight b to d7 line because I haven't yet studied too much theory in the main variations. The main variation is considered to be the Mar del Plata variation, where white castles and black goes knight c6, and there's lots of crazy variations where white attacks on this side of the board, goes c5, often rotates the knight to c4, and tries to destroy black on this flank, whereas black goes for attack on this flank, going here or here, pushing the pawns, often all of the pawns in this direction, and this bishop often is sacrificed, for example, here. There are many crazy variations which I haven't yet memorized, so I decided to go for a different variation, knight b d7 one. You don't have to memorize as much theory in this one, but the ideas are similar. So here I also go e5, and rook e1 is the line chosen by my opponent. It's not the main line, and the computer actually says that it's not the best move, but he told me he plays this usually against the King's Indian. So white can play this. There are many responses for black possible. It's possible to take the pawn, for example. Here it's possible to go c6, rook e8, and queen e7 is the move that I chose also perfectly fine. I want to put pressure on this pawn in future. So I'm threatening, maybe not now, but if white makes some nonsensical moves, I might take this pawn on e4 actually, because my queen protects it. Yes, white can try to exploit this by going like, for example, bishop f3, but I have this knight c3, and yes, he can take my queen, but I will take his queen. So it's all good. So yeah, I'm putting some pressure here with queen e7 on the e4 pawn. That's why he drops back with his bishop to f1. And I go c6. A generally useful move to prevent some knight d5 jumps and also knight b5 jumps. Or sometimes I want to take here, the knight goes here, and I want to prevent this knight from going to b5. So this is important. h3, just a waiting move here. My opponent told me, and I realized it during the game, that he was waiting for me to take on d4. He did not want to close the center with d5. Although d5 is a perfectly fine move, the computer says it's one of the best. But here black just closes the center with c5 usually. And then, for example, let's say g3, there is a plan for black, one of the plans for black, king h8, bishop g2, knight g8, let's say some b3 move, or let's say b3, f5. And this is the point. I'm trying to attack my opponent. I will go here. I will maybe go with some of my pieces to g4, maybe the knight, maybe the bishop. Maybe I'll take here and open up the file for my rook. There are many crazy complications that could ensue in these variations. This is one of the ways to play this. Also, another way is to go h6, for example, rotate the knight to h7, and also maybe play f5, maybe go for different plans, maybe put the knight on g5 and some variations. Lots of stuff. I haven't memorized the theory, so I am playing it by ear, and also I know some games in this opening, so I was inspired by some historic games played in this one. But none of that happened. My opponent doesn't want to close the center, because when you close the center, you allow your opponent to attack. When the center is closed, it's best to attack. This is a rule of thumb. So he doesn't want me to attack him. He wants me to take this pawn and open up the center. And then this pawn of mine, the d6 pawn, becomes weak because I made this move c6, which weakened this pawn. So he's waiting for me to take his pawn. And I say, no, I'll make another useful move. He says, okay, I'll go g3. And here, taking is the move that I chose. I didn't see any other useful moves. The computer says what I did was the best move. So already it's impossible to wait any longer. I need to develop the knight either to this or to this square to free up this bishop. So I have to develop. So I take. And usually taking in such variations is not advisable because of this weak pawn. But here I compensate this with my counterplay against the e4 pawn. Now I have already 4 attackers against this pawn. Yes, the queen is not the best attacker because the queen is worth less than this rook, but maybe in future I can put more pressure on this pawn. So he defends and I go a5, a very useful move here, preventing b4. So if you are looking for a creative opening to play with black against one d4 or one c4, the King's Indian is a great opening, and I'm sure I will play more games in this one and will share them with you for you to better understand the intricacies. So b3, white wants to put the bishop on this diagonal, very logical. Here I go knight h5. This is not the best move, and my coach criticized it while we were looking at the game later, a couple of days after it was played. So my coach asked me, why don't you go knight f to d7 here, and then knight to e5, and then maybe knight to d3. Actually, it's a plan that I implemented later on, but in a different variation. So yeah, somehow it was a blind spot for me. I thought I should attack on the king side, so knight on h5 is doing a great job. He cannot go f4 because I'll take, but this knight is on the rim and it's not too impressive here. So the computer also agrees that knight f to d7 would be better, but still it's not a mistake by any means. Also, the computer suggests even sacrificing this pawn, and if he takes, I can just go knight f to d7. So I've opened up this diagonal, and at the cost of 1 pawn, I've obtained some nasty counterplay. He has to go rook b1 here, and I can take, and his pawns are horrible here, those 3 pawns. They are all isolated, so the position is even a little bit better for black already. But I didn't think about this, honestly. I decided to do something else, and I went for knight h5. So here, my opponent went bishop b2, logical. I went bishop d7, finishing my development, connecting the rooks. It's always important before you start an attack. Yes, you want to start an attack as soon as possible, demolish, destroy your opponent. But first, you should develop all your pieces, connect the rooks, make sure that your position is comfortable, and then, already then, only then, you should start to attack. Okay, queen d2, useful move, also connecting the rooks. And now a4. Now I've seen this opportunity to strike also on this flank. This is a topical maneuver in the King's Indian. Actually, quite often this rook remains on the a file and puts pressure on this file. And also, quite often, this pawn becomes a bait for white pieces. White tries to win it and spends time. In the meantime, black can initiate counterplay over there. And this is exactly what I thought of. I thought I could sacrifice this pawn, and I did. The computer is hesitant about this idea, but humanly speaking, I think it's a nice one. So he went rook a to d1, and here I go a3. So this pawn went here to die. I'm 100% sure that my opponent will capture it, but I'm not afraid, like Eminem in the song. So my coach actually told me that it was too sophisticated. I needn't have done this. I could have just taken, because his rook from a1 has left this file. Now this file belongs to my rook. And if he takes, actually I could initiate some exchanges here. Takes, takes. Now this knight used to protect this pawn. Now it doesn't, so I take and attack the queen. Yes, the queen can take this pawn, but we exchange and go into an equal endgame. That's what I could have done. Actually, I calculated this during the game, but I decided against this because I didn't want to play a boring endgame. Maybe it's not as boring. Maybe Magnus Carlsen would say that this is the most interesting thing in the world, but I really didn't want to play an endgame and give him the two bishops. So this bishop is unopposed and looks really menacing. But turns out that I can go bishop e6 here, put pressure on this pawn, and I have sufficient counterplay. So bishop f1 protecting this pawn is one of the moves. But then I could just go rook a to d8, for example, and exchange everything. And in future, maybe I will be even better if I manage to advance this pawn, because maybe I can create a pass pawn over there, although the computer says it's that equal. But I didn't want to do that. I calculated this and I decided against this. Also, it's worth noting that if I take, white can take with a knight, but in this case, a great move is bishop e6, according to the computer. Interesting, because again, white can take, and here white has an extra pawn. White is up a pawn, but I have pressure against those two pawns, and I will win one of them. For example, bishop f8, rook d4, knight a4, attacking the bishop and the knight, so white has to trade, and now both pawns are under attack. I will take one of them, and black will maybe be even a little bit better. So yeah, that could have happened, but I decided to sack. I decided against going into an endgame, and I went a3. So bishop a1, and now rook a to d8. Preparing to protect this pawn, but there are also some different plans here. So knight c2, white decided to go after the pawn. It's now no longer protected because this rook left the a file, and it used to protect the a pawn, but I have no intention of protecting it. Obviously, I wouldn't want to go back now. This pawn will not survive. Queen c1, for example, if white really wants to take it as soon as possible, but there is no rush. White will be able to take it later, so that would be horrible, going back with the rook. No, I want to sacrifice this pawn. So here I go bishop e6 to prepare f5, and also to overprotect this pawn, because it used to be hanging at this point, and this pawn might be more important than that one. So bishop e6, and here I thought that he'd go knight to d5, a topical maneuver. So the idea is, if I take, he takes with the e pawn, opening up the line for the rook. So it's not really a sacrifice, because he'll take the bishop later and he'll be much better, but I don't have to take. I thought I'd go queen d7, and I thought, how clever I am, because I'm attacking this pawn and also attacking this knight again. But still, white is a little bit better according to the computer after takes, takes, and knight f4, both protecting this pawn and moving the knight out of the line of fire. So yeah, very interesting. The computer says that after knight takes, white can take with the g pawn. Wow. Because there will be some f5 ideas. Wow, crazy. I didn't see that. But I assumed that knight d5 is not that dangerous, and I was right, but there was another dangerous move that my opponent missed. My opponent took here the pawn, which is perfectly fine, and the computer says it's great, white is up a pawn, black is stupid, but that was my plan all along. Not to be stupid, but to attack. But even better was before, attacking this knight. And it turns out that there are not too many good squares for this knight. So if knight d7, knight d5 is stronger. Now the queen cannot go to d7 to form this battery. The queen should drop back, and black's position doesn't look like anything impressive. I probably would have gone to a6 to attack this pawn, but it's protected for the time being. But at least if white takes here, I can take this pawn. But also, this is nothing too crazy. Knight d5 is good here. And this knight is on the rim, doesn't have this c5 square. It cannot join the action, as opposed to what happened in the game. In the game, something much different happened. So, okay, I went bishop e6. I sacked the pawn. He took it. Now I was counting on the fact that this knight is out of play and that I will create an attack by going queen d7 first, attacking this pawn, making him defend it, and then f5. Finally, the dream move for every King's Indian player to initiate attack. So he takes, I take. He takes because he's up a pawn, he wants to exchange material, he doesn't want to be attacked and mated. And here, probably, my opponent was counting, yes, I think he told me after the game that he was counting on queen takes e8 because he thought I cannot take here because he has two attackers of the d6 pawn. Imagine his surprise when I took with the rook. And it turns out that taking this pawn is not good. What I wanted to do here was takes, and go rook e1, pressuring this bishop. And if the bishop moves here, I go bishop, knight d3, attacking this bishop again. Also, I'll be able to take this pawn maybe in the future. But the main problem is that this bishop is defending this knight. This bishop is attacking this knight. So if this bishop falls, then this knight will also fall. So it's very dangerous for white. Actually, I thought black is winning here, but the computer finds some resources to draw the game for white, but there is nothing more than a draw. So there is, for example, check, knight c2, attacking the rook, and then the rook can just drop back, for example, and this is hanging, this is hanging. So at least black is not worse, definitely. My opponent, after the game, told me that he saw another move, which is great for black, rook a8, with the same idea, pressuring this knight. And if it goes back, for example, then I'll just take it and take here, and I'm up a full piece already. Wow. Well, for a piece for 2 pawns, so it's nothing crazy, but still not pleasant. So the computer gives rook d1 here, which is, I think, impossible to find. So I can just take, but he has g4. And this is like madness. I go bishop c2, check here, and there are many variations that lead to a draw in this in this line. So that's what could have happened had he taken here. Also, even better here is not going with the rook to e1 or to a1, a8, but even better is knight d3 immediately. And then I want to go rook e1, and this rook cannot join the action. So here black is better. So my opponent correctly decided against taking this poisoned pawn, and he went knight to c2 because this knight on the rim was not participating. Now it can join the action, maybe here or here or here, and it will be an important piece. But I'm continuing my attack. Knight d3. I remember this game, Garry Kasparov playing with the black pieces and Anatoly Karpov playing with the white pieces. Kasparov put his knight on d3. It was called an octopus knight by chess experts of that time, because this octopus knight is controlling 8 important squares in the enemy camp. Well, most of them are in the enemy camp, and this is like an impressive piece, and that piece alone won Kasparov that game. So I was inspired by Garry and decided to go for this. So of course you can say white can fork those 2 pieces, but I have bishop e5 check, the king retreats, then I have bishop f4 attacking the queen, and it gets nasty very soon. For example, knight e3 blocking, then I have knight g3 check, and then I take, and the attack continues. Very dangerous, very scary to play this for white. So g4 is a crazy move. No human being would make it. The best move according to the computer is knight e1, and white is still up a pawn, and white manages to dislodge this knight of mine. So I have to trade it probably. And then white's position is fine, is better. But my opponent didn't see that. He went for knight e3, and after the game he admitted that he just missed my response. Well, we were both in time trouble already, especially him. He had not much time left. Bishop h6. And now this pin is very annoying, and this pressure on this knight becomes so annoying. I thought I'm much better here already, but here my opponent found a series of very strong moves. So he found the move knight to e4. So at first I thought it's like a blunder because I can take with the rook. Of course, if I take with the bishop, he takes, I take, and he just takes my knight, and he's practically winning. But I thought I can take with the rook, and now he has to take, because if he takes with the queen, I have various discovered attacks on the queen, like rook e3, and the queen is hit multiple times, and this rook is protected, so black is winning. So he has to take here, the rook. I take with the bishop, and now I have a bishop and a knight for a rook, which is almost always better for a rook and a pawn, but still, I'm attacking. This bishop is menacing. This bishop is menacing. This knight could jump in here. This queen is attacking. So I thought I should be close to winning here. Turns out I wasn't, because I didn't see this move. Queen e2. He found it, and the position is around equal, according to the computer. Of course, none of us knew that at the time. I was still thinking I should be winning somehow, and I spent almost all my remaining time. I had several minutes on the clock. I spent almost all of that calculating. So what I really wanted to do, was knight h to f4, attacking the queen and attacking this h3 square with my knight and my queen. I was sure I should win somehow, but I didn't find anything after queen g4, blocking my queen. And also I have to do something. If I take here, if white takes with a pawn, I win, because knight f2 attacks the rook, and then I take here with check, and it's all good. But he can take with a knight, apparently. And I was calculating this, and I decided it's lost for me. And I was correct in my calculations, because my bishop is hanging. My knight here is hanging. And also this fork is hanging, and this bishop will get hanging, after which this knight will get hanging. So everything is hanging. And if I go like bishop g5, for example, he'll just go, I don't know, he'll just take. The computer gives h4, but it's not necessary. You can just take. Okay, I take with check, he drops back, there is no mate, and I'm down material. Yes, I have some menacing bishops, but they are not checkmating the king anytime soon. There is not enough material for that. So yeah, and I was frustrated, and I decided, what if I retreat? And I thought maybe I retreat somewhere like here, but then I was afraid of this check, and I didn't have enough time to calculate till the end. But I thought definitely after exchanges he will be able to take some material of mine, and I won't be better. But I forgot that here I can take here on f2, and actually I am better. And actually he has to protect against two threats, which is very hard to do. If he goes here, I take him with check, and yeah, I take here with check, so it's almost winning for black. I didn't calculate that, I didn't have enough time, and I was frustrated. I also thought maybe I could retreat another way like queen e8, but I didn't see a way forward. Actually, the computer says that all those moves lead to approximate equality. So the best move for me in this position was indeed knight h to f4, the move that I spent several minutes calculating. Queen g4 is the best response. Now, I can do many things. I can go here, and then the following variation ensues. Check, block, check, takes. Now, if he takes, I take here, and I'm much better. So the best move for him is not to take, but to go knight g4, attacking this bishop. I go bishop f3, counter-attacking the rook and the knight. This is crazy. It's very complicated. Finding this with minutes is practically impossible. So my coach told me that it's okay that I didn't calculate all this. Rook d2, bishop takes, and now knight c5, great move. If white takes, then I take with check, and I win the rook and the game. So white has another clever move, which is rook takes d6, and I retreat. And here the position is plus 0.5. So around equal, a little bit better for white, but impossible to calculate in such a short time, such a long variation. So the bishop f3 was a nice move here. So yeah, that was one of the variations. So I could have gone queen f7 here. Also, I could have gone queen e8, and it's also not that bad. So the computer gives queen h4 as the best move. And now I just drop back like knight h5, and I'm fine. So yeah, difficult to find this. Also, if takes, then I take with check, and king g1, I can take here, crazy. So sacrificing the knight, and now taking here, and he cannot take the bishop because there will be a discovered check, and I will win the queen. So he has to go king e2 and then bishop c2. This is crazy. This is around equal according to the computer, a little bit better for black, but obviously also very difficult to calculate this. So both queen f7 and queen e8 worked in this position. Also, the computer says that queen e7 works. Well, for the same reason, there is the same variation with the exchange of the queens. I've shown it to you. And also, knight e6 also works. This is crazy. This is, everything is a draw. Like chess is a drawn game, but it's very surprising. So queen takes bishop, but then I take here. This is the idea. And here the computer gives queen e5 as the best move. This is just, wow, wow. I could have found it obviously over the board, but not 5 moves in advance. So the idea is that if black takes, obviously rook takes and white is better, but black can take the rook. But then white has a check because this bishop is very powerful, and another check, and a block, and taking the knight. And when the dust settles, it's a dead equal position. The evaluation is 0.0 by the computer. This is crazy, but of course I didn't calculate this like 10 moves ahead with like less than 10 minutes on my clock. So I was panicking. I was calculating some things. I was miscalculating other things. And I didn't find a good position for me after knight h2, f4. And once I had little time on the clock, I decided, you know what, I'll just wait and go queen f7. And I completely forgot that he has, once I made this move, I released my hand from the queen. I saw that he has knight g4. And I was like, what the hell did I just do? Why didn't I think about this move? It's so obvious because I'm attacking this and I'm threatening to take. And the idea is that he cannot really take here because I take, and take here, and I mate him. If he goes here, this is checkmate. Well, he can go here, but also it's unpleasant. I'm attacking him, and if anyone's better, it's me. Bishop f4 is a nice move here because the knight cannot take on pain of pin. And if the pawn takes, I can actually sack my queen and give a fork here. I didn't calculate this in advance, but I would have seen it. It's not too complicated. And here the endgame is winning for black, actually, because black is up a pawn. Wow, that could have happened. I think I would have found bishop f4. It's a move in my style. But of course, he doesn't have to take here. I calculated just this and assumed that I'm comfortably better here in this variation, and I was correct. But he doesn't have to take. He has knight to g4, and he protects this, he attacks this, he attacks this, and he also attacks this. And I'm cooked. I can't do anything. Once I saw this, I was like, oh, sheesh. So I decided to try and initiate some skirmish on the king's side. I went bishop f4. He could have taken, actually. There's nothing too crazy about it, but I have at least some checks, and maybe I can go knight g3 here, attacking, creating something. If he takes here, I have this, and I checkmate him, actually. So if he goes here, I have queen h3, and here, yeah, this is a checkmate. So that would have been pretty, but of course he has other defenses. He doesn't have to go for this, but he just decided to avoid this, and he took on d3, which is a great practical choice. So if I take his rook, he just takes, and he's up material because my bishop is hanging, and if I go back with the bishop, well, my position is not good at all. Like, his attack is menacing, his bishop is crazily good, and yeah, queen takes d6, I'm down a couple of pawns, and I'm attacked, and this is losing. So I decided against taking his rook. I thought about d5 here, actually, for some time. But I thought, I saw a queen takes e4. That's why I didn't do this. Sacrifice of a queen. And if I take, rook d8. And unfortunately, I cannot go king g7 because of this bishop. So I have to block with my queen. And he'll just take it. And then take here. And he'll be up a piece, and I'm lost. So this is why I didn't go d5 here. And I decided to continue my agony by going queen f5. At least I'm putting some pressure, creating attacks. I'm attacking the rook, but he just takes, and it turns out that I cannot take the rook because queen e8 will lead to checkmate. This is the only move here, and he will have knight h6. Knight h6 is a beautiful checkmate. Again, this bishop is beautiful here. Okay, so I cannot take the rook. He takes my bishop. I take with a check, but he just drops back. He sees that there is no checkmate here for him. I still try to go d5, but again, I fall for the same trap. Rook takes d5. Now he sacrifices not the queen, but the rook for the same idea. If I take, then queen e8, queen f8, and knight h6 is a beautiful checkmate. So I cannot take this rook after rook d5. I try to go for broke with knight g3, again, trying to throw my pieces at his king. But he's very accurate. He gives me a check, he gives me another check, and he gives me another check. And here I resign because I don't have any squares for my king. And if I take, he won't even take my queen. He'll just give me a checkmate. Queen c7, king e6, and queen d6 is a checkmate. No, it's not a checkmate. Queen d7 is a checkmate, yeah. Queen d6 is a checkmate in 2. So this is protected. This is also protected. My queen is just a burden. Doesn't do anything here. So beautiful game. Nicely played by my opponent. He played at 93% accuracy. Very, very good accuracy score by him. He's a strong player. I took my chances. I gambled. I sacked a pawn. It paid off initially. I got a great position. I could have drawn the game with correct play, maybe even initiated something more if my opponent made a mistake, but he just didn't make mistakes, and I was the one who made the final mistake and lost the game. So it happens. Very instructive for me. I'm preparing for my upcoming tournament. It will start at the end of this week, so I'll be sharing my game recaps with you. See you in the next one. Don't forget to comment if you like this video. Bye bye.